In 1942, the British government turned a Scottish island into a biological weapon. They detonated anthrax bombs, watched sheep die within days, and then walked away. The island stayed toxic for 48 years, and that's just one of 25 dark secrets hiding in Scotland's geography. Most people see Scotland and think rolling highlands, ancient castles, friendly pubs. But beneath that postcard image lies a landscape shaped by plague, massacre, mysterious disappearances, and industrial disasters that killed hundreds. These aren't ghost stories. They're documented history, buried in the land itself. Here are 25 dark secrets that most Scots don't even know about. Number 1. Gruinard Island, the anthrax experiment. In 1942, with Nazi Germany developing biological weapons, British scientists needed a testing ground. They chose Gruinard, a small island off Scotland's northwest coast. Over several months, they detonated bombs filled with anthrax spores and watched as 80 sheep died agonizing deaths within days of exposure. The scientists got their data and left, but the spores did not leave with them. Anthrax can survive in soil for decades, even centuries. Warning signs went up around the island's beaches. For 48 years, no one was allowed to set foot on Gruinard without protective equipment. It took 280 tons of formaldehyde sprayed across every acre of the island before the government declared it safe in 1990. The original owner's heirs bought it back for £500, the same price paid in 1942. Some locals still will not go near it. Number 2. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse Mystery. On December 15, 1903, 3 lighthouse keepers on the Flannan Isles made their last log entries: James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur. Then they vanished. When a relief boat arrived 11 days later, Keeper Joseph Moore climbed the 160 steps to the lighthouse, alone. The door was unlocked. The clock had stopped. Dinner was set on the table, untouched. One chair lay overturned on the floor, and the only living thing was a canary sitting silently in its cage. Outside, on the western landing, iron railings had been bent and twisted. A supply box had been smashed despite being over 100 feet above sea level. A 1-ton rock had been displaced from its position. But of the 3 men, there was no trace. No bodies were ever recovered. To this day, no one knows what happened that December night. The official cause of death reads simply, probably drowning. Number 3. Piper Alpha, the world's deadliest oil disaster. On July 6, 1988, 177 kilometers off Aberdeen's coast, a shift change miscommunication triggered the worst offshore oil disaster in history. A safety valve had been removed for maintenance. The night shift did not know. When they started the backup pump, gas leaked, found an ignition source, and exploded. The first blast ripped through the platform at 10 p.m. 20 minutes later, a high-pressure gas pipeline ruptured, feeding the inferno with 3 tons of gas per second. Men jumped 90 feet into burning oil-covered water. Others were trapped in the accommodation block as toxic smoke filled every corridor. 167 men died that night. 109 from smoke inhalation. 13 drowned. 11 burned. 30 bodies were never recovered. The inquiry revealed what everyone feared. The men in the accommodation block could have been saved if someone had given the order to shut down the connected platforms. No one did. Everyone waited for permission from someone who was already dead. Number 4. The Glencoe Massacre. On February 13, 1692, soldiers who had enjoyed MacDonald hospitality for nearly 2 weeks rose before dawn and began killing their hosts. The background was political. King William demanded all clan chiefs sign an oath of allegiance by New Year's Day. Chief McCain of Glencoe tried to comply but arrived 6 days late due to bureaucratic delays. That was enough excuse. Secretary of State John Dalrymple saw his opportunity to make an example. Captain Robert Campbell and 120 soldiers arrived in Glencoe claiming they needed quartering. For 12 days they ate McDonald food, drank McDonald whiskey, and slept in McDonald homes. Then came the orders. Put all under 70 to the sword. 38 McDonalds were murdered in their beds that winter morning. Another 40 died fleeing into the mountains, including women, children, and the elderly, who froze in the February snow. The crime was not the killing. Scotland had seen clan warfare before. The crime was the violation of Highland hospitality, the most sacred code of the Highlands. Guests had become executioners. That betrayal still echoes through Glencoe today. Number 5. Mary King's Close, Edinburgh's underground city. Beneath Edinburgh's Royal Mile, entire streets from the 1600s still exist in darkness, sealed away when the city built over them. Mary King's Close was once a busy thoroughfare, home to merchants, craftsmen, and their families. Then came the plague of 1644. The wealthy fled Edinburgh. The poor stayed and died. Estimates suggest between 1/5 and 1/2 of Edinburgh's population perished. The persistent myth says the city sealed plague victims inside Mary King's Close and left them to die. That is not quite true. The sick were cared for as best they could be. But after the plague passed, the close fell into decline. When the city chambers were built in the 1750s, they simply constructed over the top, using the old buildings as foundations. The close became a basement, then a forgotten cellar, then a legend. Today, you can walk those streets again, guided by actors playing 17th century residents. Tourists leave dolls for Annie, a ghost girl a Japanese psychic claimed to see in 1992. The child she described had been looking for her lost doll. Now there are thousands of dolls. Whether Annie ever existed is another question entirely. Number 6. Burke and Hare, the Anatomy Murders. In 1828, Edinburgh fresh corpses were worth £10 to £12 to anatomy schools desperate for dissection subjects. 2 Irish immigrants realized there was easier money than grave robbing. William Burke and William Hare ran a boarding house in Edinburgh's West Port, a cramped slum in the shadow of Edinburgh Castle. When a lodger named Donald died owing rent, they sold his body to Dr. Robert Knox at Surgeon Square. The payment was more than a month's earnings, so they made more bodies. Over 10 months, Burke and Hare killed 16 people. They had a method: get the victim drunk, then suffocate them while leaving no marks. It became known as burking. Their victims were society's invisible people: lodgers, prostitutes, a woman named Mary Patterson, just 18 years old, and James Wilson, known as Daft Jamie, a young man with learning difficulties who was well known throughout Edinburgh. When his body appeared on Knox's dissecting table, students recognized him immediately. The killing stopped when a lodger named Anne Gray found a body hidden under a straw mattress. Hare turned informer to save himself. Burke hanged before a crowd of 25,000 on January 28, 1829. His skeleton still stands in the Anatomical Museum of Edinburgh University. Number 7. The Loch Ness hoax that became a legend. The most famous photograph of the Loch Ness monster was a toy submarine with a plastic wood head, photographed by a man seeking revenge. In 1933, a new road along Loch Ness's northern shore brought tourists and claimed sightings. The Daily Mail hired big game hunter Marmaduke Wetherell to investigate. He found footprints on the shore, triumphantly declared them monster tracks, and announced the discovery to the world. Then, the Natural History Museum examined the prints. They had been made with a dried hippopotamus foot, the kind Victorians used as umbrella stands. Wetherell was publicly humiliated. His revenge came in 1934. Working with his son Ian and his stepson Christian Sperling, Wetherell built a tiny monster head, attached it to a toy submarine, and photographed it on the loch. They recruited a London surgeon named Robert Wilson to claim he had taken the photo, adding medical respectability. For 60 years, the surgeon's photograph fooled the world. Only in 1994, when 93-year-old Christian Sperling was dying, did he confess the whole thing. But by then, Nessie had become Scotland's most profitable myth, with over 1,100 sightings and counting. Number 8. The Battle of Culloden and the destruction that followed. On April 16, 1746, the last battle fought on British soil lasted just 40 minutes. It ended the Jacobite Rising, and it began something far worse. Charles Edward Stuart's exhausted army of 5,000 Highlanders faced 9,000 well-fed, well-rested government troops under the Duke of Cumberland. The Jacobites had marched through the night and had not eaten. Cumberland's men had been drilling new tactics specifically designed to counter the Highland charge. When the clans attacked, British soldiers were ordered not to fight the man directly in front, but to bayonet the exposed side of the man to their right. About 1,000 Jacobites died on Culloden Moor. Another 50 government soldiers fell. But the real killing came after. Cumberland ordered that wounded Jacobites be killed where they lay. For days afterward, soldiers scoured the moor, executing survivors and burning nearby homes. Over the following weeks, 1,000 more died as troops swept through the Highlands. Villages were razed, cattle were seized, the wearing of tartan was banned, the playing of bagpipes was banned, the carrying of weapons was banned. An entire culture was made illegal. Cumberland earned a nickname that stuck: the Butcher. Number 9. The Highland Clearances. Between 1800 and 1855, landlords forcibly removed 70,000 people from their homes to make room for sheep. The Sutherland Clearances were the most notorious. The Countess of Sutherland and her factor, Patrick Sellar, removed between 6,000 and 15,000 tenants from land their families had worked for generations. Accounts describe houses burned with possessions still inside, crops left unharvested, the elderly carried on backs through the snow, and at least one woman who died during her eviction. Sellar was tried for arson and culpable homicide in 1816. He was acquitted. The clearances continued. Displaced families were moved to coastal plots too small to farm productively. When the kelp industry collapsed and the potato blight arrived in the 1840s, there was nothing left. Many emigrated to Canada, America, Australia. Some died on the ships. Some died in the famines that followed. The empty glens tourists find so beautiful today are empty because their inhabitants were driven out at bayonet point. Number 10. The Quintinshill rail disaster. On May 22, 1915, two trains collided at Quintinshill near Gretna Green. A third train then hit the wreckage, and fire consumed it all. A troop train carrying 500 soldiers from the Royal Scots Regiment struck a stationary local passenger train. A minute later, the Glasgow to London Express plowed into the wreckage at 60 miles per hour. The troop train, built largely of wood and lit by gas, ignited. 226 people died. 214 of them were soldiers heading to Gallipoli. Only 52 bodies could be identified. The rest were buried in a mass grave in Edinburgh. 2 signalmen were found responsible. James Tinsley had forgotten about the local train he had arrived on minutes earlier. George Meakin had failed to follow basic safety protocols. Both were convicted of manslaughter. Tinsley served 3 years. Meakin served 18 months. It was the worst rail disaster in British history, and the men responsible walked free within years. Number 11. Smoo Cave and the Murders in the Dark. In the far north of Scotland, where the land ends at the cliffs of Durness, there is a cave large enough to swallow a cathedral. And for centuries, it swallowed people too. Smoo Cave is formed where freshwater meets limestone, creating a cavern system that runs deep into the Scottish coastline. Its enormous entrance, 50 feet high, opens onto a beach. But inside, the cave descends into darkness, with underground waterfalls and passages that have never been fully mapped. Highland legend says a man named Donald McMurdo, the Lord of Rie's troublesome cousin, used Smoo as his base for robbery, piracy, and murder. Travelers who entered never left. McMurdo is said to have killed dozens before his own end came when he lowered himself into the cave's inner chamber and found the devil waiting. He escaped through a blowhole, leaving only his dog behind. The dog was later found washed up, singed, and dead. Modern archaeology has found human bones in the cave's depths. Whether they are McMurdo's victims or earlier remains is unknown. Number 12. Sawney Bean and the Cannibal Clan Legend. In a coastal cave near Ballantrae, legend says a family of 48 survived for 25 years on human flesh. Alexander Sawney Bean supposedly left his home in East Lothian in the 16th century and took up residence in Benane Cave with his wife. Over decades, they raised children and grandchildren through incest. The family survived by ambushing travelers, robbing them, killing them, and eating their flesh. Pickled body parts hung from the cave walls like cured meat. The story says they killed over 1,000 people before King James VI himself led 400 men and bloodhounds to the cave. The Beans were captured and executed without trial. The men were dismembered. The women were burned alive. Here is the problem. No historical record of the Beans exists. No trial documents. No execution records. No contemporary accounts. The first written version appears in the 1700s, centuries after the supposed events. Benane Cave exists, but it floods at high tide, making long-term habitation impossible. Most historians believe the Bean legend was propaganda, likely invented to portray Scottish Highlanders as barbaric savages. Number 13. The Eigg Massacre. In 1577, nearly 400 people hid in a cave on the Isle of Eigg. Every single one of them suffocated to death. The MacLeods of Skye had raided Eigg, and some of their men had assaulted local women. The MacDonalds of Eigg retaliated by binding the offenders' hands and feet and setting them adrift in a boat to die at sea. When the MacLeods learned their men were dead, they sent a war party. The entire population of Eigg, 395 men, women, and children, hid in a cave called Uam Frang, Cathedral Cave. They concealed the entrance and waited for the raiders to leave. But fresh snow fell overnight. The MacLeods found a single footprint, followed it to the cave, and discovered the hidden population. Rather than fight through the narrow entrance, the MacLeods gathered every scrap of burnable material they could find and lit fires at the cave mouth. The smoke filled the cavern. When the MacLeods finally entered, they found nearly 400 corpses. Bones remained in the cave for centuries. Sir Walter Scott visited in 1814 and removed a skull. The Eigg Massacre was not the end of clan violence. It was simply the most efficient. Number 14. Lockerbie and the Debris Field. On December 21, 1988, Pan Am Flight 103 exploded over the Scottish town of Lockerbie. 270 people died, and wreckage fell across 850 square miles of countryside. The Boeing 747 was at 31,000 feet when a bomb hidden in a radio cassette player detonated in the forward cargo hold. The nose section separated first, and then the aircraft broke apart entirely. Passengers, some still strapped to their seats, fell for nearly 2 minutes before impact. The wings, full of fuel, struck the town at over 500 miles per hour. A fireball vaporized an entire street. 11 Lockerbie residents died on the ground. The crater where the wings hit measured 155 feet long. Search teams found bodies and wreckage spread across farms, forests, and hillsides. Some debris landed as far as the English border. Presents wrapped for Christmas lay scattered in muddy fields. The investigation traced the bomb to Libyan intelligence officer Abdelbasset al-Megrahi, who was convicted in 2001. Questions about whether he acted alone persist to this day. Number 15. Scotland's secret nuclear bunker. 40 feet beneath a Scottish farmhouse, the government built a bunker designed to survive nuclear war. For 35 years, they pretended it did not exist. Scotland's secret bunker is located near St. Andrews in Fife. It was constructed in the 1950s as a regional seat of government. If nuclear war came, this is where officials would coordinate the response for eastern Scotland. The entrance was disguised as a traditional farmhouse. Guards lived above ground, pretending to be farmers. The bunker could house 300 people for 30 days. It had its own water supply, electricity generators, air filtration systems, and a BBC studio for broadcasting to survivors. Maps on the walls showed expected fallout patterns. Paperwork detailed how to maintain order in a society where most of the population would be dead. The facility remained operational until 1993, staffed by people who could not tell their families where they worked. Today, it is a tourist attraction. Visitors can see the operations room, the dormitories, and the equipment that would have tracked incoming missiles. The cheerful farmhouse entrance is still standing. Number 16. Ben Nevis and the Frozen Dead. Britain's highest mountain kills people every year. Some bodies take decades to find. Ben Nevis rises 1,345 meters above sea level. From Fort William, it looks deceptively accessible. Thousands climb it annually via the tourist path. But the mountain's summit plateau is featureless in cloud, its north face drops in sheer cliffs, and its weather can change from summer sunshine to winter blizzard in minutes. In February 1998, 3 soldiers died in an avalanche on the mountain's north face during a training exercise. In March 2019, a climber's body was found perfectly preserved after lying undiscovered for nearly 30 years. The mountain does not always return what it takes. On average, 3 to 5 people die on Ben Nevis each year. Falls, exposure, avalanche, getting lost. The summit has its own climate, often 10 degrees colder than sea level with visibility near zero. Mountain rescue teams from Lockerbie respond to over 100 callouts annually. Some are rescues, some are recoveries. Number 17. The HMS Hampshire and Kitchener's death. On June 5, 1916, a British warship carrying one of the most important men of the First World War struck a German mine off Orkney and sank in 15 minutes. 737 men died, including War Secretary Lord Kitchener. HMS Hampshire was steaming toward Russia in a force 9 gale when the explosion ripped through her hull. The seas were so violent that lifeboats could not be launched. Men went into the freezing water with nothing but their life jackets. Only 12 survived. Kitchener's body was never recovered. His face had appeared on the famous "Your Country Needs You" recruitment poster. His death shocked Britain and spawned conspiracy theories that persist to this day. Was it really a mine? Was there a German spy aboard? Did someone in British intelligence want Kitchener dead? The truth is probably simpler. Bad weather, bad luck, and a German minefield laid specifically to catch British ships leaving Scapa Flow. The Hampshire's wreck lies in 60 meters of water, officially protected as a war grave. Divers who have visited describe the hull surrounded by unexploded shells, slowly corroding in the cold Orkney Sea. Number 18. The Cuillin Whirlpool. Between the islands of Jura and Scarba lies the 3rd largest whirlpool in the world. The roar of its waters can be heard 10 miles away. Cuillin forms where Atlantic tides are forced through a narrow strait over a submerged pinnacle that rises from the sea floor. At peak flow, currents reach 8.5 knots. Standing waves reach 15 feet. The water does not just spin, it boils. In 1947, author Orwell nearly died here. He was rowing with his nephew and 2 other passengers when their boat lost its motor to the whirlpool. They made it to a tiny island and signaled a passing fishing boat, but Orwell, already weakened by tuberculosis, never fully recovered. He finished 1984 2 years later and died 18 months after that. Local legend says the whirlpool is named after a Viking prince who drowned trying to prove his worth by anchoring in the maelstrom for 3 days. His body washed up in a nearby cave. The Royal Navy classifies Cuillin as unnavigable, though experienced sailors attempt it at slack tide. Every few years, someone does not make it. Number 19. The Glenfinnan Viaduct deaths. The iconic railway bridge from the Harry Potter films cost unknown lives to build. No one thought to count the navvies who died. Glenfinnan Viaduct was constructed between 1897 and 1901. It stretches 380 meters across the glen on 21 concrete arches, the tallest reaching 30 meters. At the time, it was the longest concrete bridge in Britain. Building it required an army of navvies, itinerant laborers who followed railway construction across the country. They lived in temporary camps, worked in dangerous conditions, and were paid by the piece. When someone fell from a scaffold or was crushed by falling stone, work continued. There was no health and safety. There was no compensation. There was not even a reliable count. Construction deaths on Victorian railways were so common, they were not news. Estimates suggest the West Highland Line, of which Glenfinnan is a part, killed dozens of workers. Their names are largely forgotten. The bridge remains, carrying tourists who come to photograph the Hogwarts Express crossing above their heads. Number 20. Inchkeith Island, the Plague Quarantine. In the Firth of Forth, 1.5 miles from Edinburgh, lies an island that served as Scotland's dumping ground for the contagious, the criminal, and the unwanted. Inchkeith has been a leper colony, a plague quarantine, a military fortress, and a prison. In the 15th century, syphilis patients were shipped there and left to recover or die. In the 16th century, King James IV supposedly marooned 2 infants on the island with a mute woman to discover what language humans would speak naturally. The experiment, if it happened, tells us nothing about language and everything about royal cruelty. During plague outbreaks, the infected were transported to Inchkeith and abandoned. Some survived. Many did not. The island's isolation made it perfect for containing what Edinburgh did not want to see. Today, Inchkeith is abandoned again. The lighthouse is automated. The military buildings crumble. Seabirds nest in the ruins of quarantine wards. No one lives there. The island remembers. Number 21. The Cuillin Ridge and its annual toll. On the Isle of Skye, a mountain range of bare black rock claims lives with mechanical regularity. The Cuillin is not Scotland's highest mountain, but it may be its most dangerous. The ridge stretches 8 miles, with 12 peaks over 3,000 feet. The rock is gabbro, rough enough to grip but so hard that it does not weather into obvious paths. Navigation is difficult. Descents are often harder than ascents. And the weather changes faster than anywhere else in Scotland. Every year, mountain rescue teams on Skye respond to dozens of incidents. Falls are common. Getting lost is common. Exposure claims those who underestimate how quickly cold and wet becomes lethal at altitude. Bodies are occasionally found weeks or months after disappearance. The full traverse of the Cuillin Ridge is considered one of the hardest mountaineering challenges in Britain. It requires rock climbing, knife-edge ridge walking, and navigation skills that most hikers do not possess. Many who attempt it turn back. Some do not get the chance. Number 22. World War II aircraft crashes in the Highlands. More than 70 aircraft crashed in the Scottish Highlands during World War II. Most crash sites still contain wreckage. Some still contain remains. Training flights, bad weather, navigation errors, and mechanical failures brought bombers, fighters, and transport aircraft down across the remote mountains. In many cases, recovery was impossible. The terrain was too rugged, the weather too severe, and the war too pressing. Crews were listed as missing, and the wreckage was left where it fell. Today, hill walkers occasionally stumble across debris fields, twisted aluminum, rusted engines, and sometimes personal effects that have lain undisturbed for 80 years. Some sites are marked, most are not. In 1945, a B-24 Liberator crashed into Ben More on Mull, killing all 9 crew. The wreckage still lies on the mountainside, and climbers pass it regularly. The site is protected, but pieces have been taken as souvenirs over the decades. The crew members' names are inscribed on memorials. Their bones remained on the mountain until formal recovery operations decades later. Number 23. The Glasgow Necropolis murders. Edinburgh had Burke and Hare. Glasgow had its own body-snatching trade, and its most famous cemetery was built partly in response. The Glasgow Necropolis was opened in 1833 on a hill overlooking the cathedral. It was designed to be secure. Watchmen patrolled the grounds. Mort safes, heavy iron cages, protected fresh graves from resurrection men who would dig up corpses to sell to medical schools. But security was not perfect. Records suggest bodies were stolen from Glasgow cemeteries throughout the 1820s and the 1830s. The medical schools paid well and asked few questions. Families sometimes guarded graves for weeks until decay made the body worthless to anatomists. The necropolis itself contains around 50,000 burials in 37 acres. Victorian Glasgow's wealthy elite lie here in elaborate monuments. So do those who could afford more modest plots. And somewhere in the unmarked sections, there may be bodies that were never officially buried at all, people who died in the poorhouses and hospitals, and whose remains were sold before families could claim them. Number 24. The Tay Bridge disaster. On December 28, 1879, the longest bridge in the world collapsed in a storm, taking a train and 75 passengers into the freezing river below. The Tay Bridge was an engineering triumph, nearly 2 miles of iron girders crossing the Firth of Tay between Dundee and Fife. When it opened in 1878, Queen Victoria herself crossed it. Designer Thomas Bouch was knighted. But Bouch had made mistakes. The cast iron columns were poorly manufactured, with hidden defects. The wind loading calculations were inadequate, and maintenance was neglected. On that December night, a force 10 gale struck the bridge as the evening mail train from Edinburgh crossed the high girders. Witnesses saw sparks, then darkness, then nothing. All 75 people on the train died. Bodies and wreckage were pulled from the river for months afterward. Some were never found. The inquiry placed blame squarely on Bouch, whose design had failed to account for the wind. He died within the year, some said of shame. The replacement bridge, built beside the original stumps, still carries trains today. At low tide, the foundations of Bouch's failed bridge are still visible. Number 25. The Erskine Bridge. Scotland's youngest dark secret is not ancient history. It is happening now. The Erskine Bridge crosses the River Clyde west of Glasgow. Since it opened in 1971, more people have died by suicide from this bridge than from any other structure in Scotland. The exact figures are not publicly released, but estimates suggest more than 300 deaths. Barriers were finally approved in 2021 after decades of campaigning. Installation began in 2023. The barriers are designed to be difficult to climb, reducing impulsive attempts and giving time for intervention. Studies from other bridges show that most people who are stopped from attempting suicide at one location do not go on to die by suicide elsewhere. The Erskine Bridge story is different from the others. It is not about what happened in the past, it is about what is being done now. The barriers are a recognition that some geographical features attract tragedy, and that recognition can save lives. Scotland's landscape tells stories that guidebooks don't print. Islands poisoned by weapons testing, lighthouses where keepers vanished, oil platforms that became furnaces, caves that hold the bones of massacre victims and murder victims alike, railway lines built on foundations of forgotten dead. 25 dark secrets, and those are just the ones we know about. The Highlands are beautiful precisely because they're empty, but emptiness has a history. The people who should be here were cleared, starved, drowned, burned, or driven across oceans to lands they'd never seen. The landscape Scotland sells to tourists is the landscape of loss. Every glen tells a story. Every loch hides something. Every island remembers what happened when no one else was watching. Walk carefully. You're walking on graves.